What's up, Guru Nation? You're about to watch a very special presentation from Daniel Reget, the CRA coach. He teaches every week 12 of our CRA Academy every quarter. Next one starts June 9th. So he teaches every week 12, and this is the last week of the Academy. So it makes sense that he teaches it now after all the fundamentals, all the fundamental principles and the scenarios are completed. Then he goes through, and this could be helpful for you CRAs because he actually coaches CRAs on how to improve their workflow, how to improve their efficiencies, how to basically get some of their life back, right? Because when you're working as a CRA, you're exchanging your life for money. So it makes sense to get some of your life back if you can improve efficiencies. So this is what Daniel Reget does. A lot of practical life hacks that CRAs can implement today. So enjoy, and if you're interested in the CRA Academy, Dan teaches every week 12. Talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.
Okay, recording started. So again, welcome everybody to this weekly course. My name is Daniel Reget, the CRA coach. What we're going to be doing today is, again, it's more the hands-on stuff you learned in the CRA training about all the requirements, all the stuff that a CRA needs to do. And what I personally specialize in is teaching CRAs, coaching them, and how to actually do all those things in a stress-free and organized way. So I'm not going to be doing any ICH, GCP details or whatnot. It's really about how do you actually organize all that stuff in the real world. I mainly coach CRAs that are on the brink or beyond being burned out, and also aspiring CRAs that want to have a little bit of an edge in their job interviews because they actually then know about the reality of a job, and not only that, but also how they're going to organize themselves. The coaching course that I usually provide is like a 2-day course. I promise, Dan, that I'm going to boil down as much information that's going to be helpful to you guys as I can into this hour and a half. So I would recommend the slides that I'm going to be presenting are really just going to be very high level. I recommend taking notes to get the full benefit from that stuff. And yeah, so without further ado, let's get started. The main thing that you're going to bump into when you start as ERAs is that you're going to have to be working with tools that no one provides you with. Going to have to make your own tools, and you'll also be working with other tools that no one really explains to you from a perspective of what does a CRA need to know about this tool. So ICH, GCP, protocol training, EDC training and whatnot, that's all good and nice, but those are not your tools. Stuff like Outlook, Excel, Word, those are going to be your tools. And with those tools, you're going to need to create further tools for yourself. But what kind of tools and how the hell should you know when you're starting out as a CRA? So again, let me show you as much as I can in this session today. First of all, let me go back. There you go. First of all, you got to understand as a CRA, you're going to have to become a communication expert and a communication juggling expert. You're going to be receiving numerous requests to you send each and every day, and how you manage that is going to largely determine whether or not you sink or swim as a CRA. And it's also about being efficient with the use of your brain's power and your mental focus. So you're smart, great, awesome, I get that. So are all the other burned out CRAs. Being a smart guy or girl is a prerequisite, obviously, to becoming a CRA, and then you have to really maximize your efficiency. If you've looked into it, you know that senior CRAs are paid around 100, 120K a year. That's for a reason. Not only are they smart, they're also very efficient in their work because there's going to be so much stuff thrown at you that if you're not super efficient from the get-go, you're going to run into trouble pretty quickly. So many of the things you're going to hear today in the course may sound trivial and simple, but still, please don't dismiss them. If every piece of advice just saves you like 0.5% or 1% of your total work time on average, and you implement and actually follow like 20 tips, that's going to be the difference between working a 10-hour day and working an 8-hour day. And it's also going to be the difference between enjoying your weekends or working on your weekends. Another thing about what you're going to be hearing now, it's all geared towards removing sources of error and mistakes that lead to you having to redo work or looking up information that you know is it's somewhere. And all that stuff costs you even more time that you're not going to have. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to bring up is subject lines of emails. An email structure for the CRA should start out with the protocol / the site or PI name / the subject, that is the patient, and then / the topic. Really maintain that structure all the time, because you're going to need that to find your communication later on. And again, it's about juggling your communication and staying on top of what's going on all over the place. As a CRA, you know you're going to be managing 10, maybe 15, something like that. So this here is going to be like your starting point. Have a subject line in the structure: protocol, site, subject, and the topic. Takes about 10 to 15 seconds to type a subject line like that. If you send out 30 emails a day, it'll take like, let's say, 5 seconds a subject line. We're talking about 2.5 minutes every day. And that's the difference between your subject lines being subject lines from a site saying help, or just patient at site tomorrow, stuff like that, that you really later when you're looking for something can't really tie to a site, to an event, or to a protocol. So update those subject lines. Also update subject lines from emails you receive from other people. So if you get one of those emails from site saying help or whatnot, double click that email, open it up, and then you can actually change the subject line. And then you close that email. It'll ask you if you want to save the change, say yes, and then communicate from that changed email on, forwarding with a new and corrected subject line. Update the subject lines as the communication moves on. We all know might start with something as a CRA, like a site asks you about a patient out of window and whatnot, and then communication moves on, and then they have a question about ConMeds or a completely different patient, and they just reply to the last email. Update those subject lines to make sure that they reflect the topic when the topic does change. Yeah, another thing as a CRA, especially after a CRA Academy course or any other CRA training for that matter, you may be under the impression that you as a CRA are going to be expected to know everything. Good news is that's not true. But as a CRA, you don't have to know everything, but you have to know where to find everything and find that information quickly. So again, these kind of subject lines will help you track down communication and stay on top of all that stuff. Another thing is your folders in Outlook. General recommendation from me is use as many folders and then subfolders as makes sense to you. It's much, much easier for you to locate an email that you're looking for in one of your 100 folders that you've named than looking for one email among 1,000 emails in your inbox. So, and just to do the math a little bit, you're easily going to be receiving 30 emails a day as a CRA. So if you whip out the calculator, I mean, that is in 10 days, 300. By the end of the month, you've hit like almost 1,000 emails. So long story short, you want to be organized. Okay, just a sec. Just want to jump back into the chat real quick, make sure there's not a tons of messages saying, hey, we can't hear you, we can't see your screen. Okay, wonderful. We're good. Okay, so again, set up as many folders as make sense to you and lean on the more folders side rather than less folders. Just a couple of examples. is have folders for all the systems that you'll be using as a CRA. So you'll be using a clinical trials management system, CTMS. Your company, most of you, when you're CRAs, will be working for CROs. There will be a time entry system where you track your time. So have a folder for that. You'll have corporate training platforms where you do your trainings. You'll have a folder for communications with your manager, your company benefits, corporate credit card stuff for your travels. The help desk ticket you submit, office supply orders, out of the office messages that you receive from other people. So you can dig up that information real quick. Who the hell is the backup for this person? Travel, have subfolders in there for itineraries and each of your travel benefits programs, United Airlines, Marriott Hotels, and whatnot. A folder for general company information or any system-wide corporate announcements that you'll be receiving. And as a rule of thumb, like any kind of topic where you receive four or five emails or more, create your folder for that and copy the stuff in there. Have a folder for each of your protocols, obviously, that you're working on. And then as a few suggestions for the folders within each protocol folder, have subfolders in there for communication with team lead, copy that stuff in there, investigator brochures, when do you receive them, so you can pull up those emails. It may come up as a question that you don't only need to know an investigator brochure version that applies to your study, but also when did you as a CRA actually receive that investigator brochure for the first time. All the vendors that you're using, so lab vendors, ECG vendors, whatever your trial will be utilizing. And in each vendor folder, have a subfolder where you have any kind of guidance documents in there, like lab manuals, IWS manuals that you'll be receiving. And also have a subfolder just with your login details when you initially receive that email. So when you're looking for that a year later, because there's some kind of login issue all of a sudden, you can pull up that email immediately. Then team contact lists you'll be receiving for your internal team, FAQ logs, investigator meeting, any information about the investigator meeting, if there's one that you're involved in, have that in a separate folder. Any newsletters, have site folders, and just one folder per site. That should be enough. I don't recommend having any further subfolders in there because you have your subject lines in this format, correct? So if you're ever looking for a communication, you're going to easily be able to go into that site folder and then drill down and find that communication that you're actually looking for. Team meetings is another thing. Any client meetings, have a folder for that. So if you have like weekly recurring clinical team meetings with the other CRAs. Then a folder for your protocols and amendments, CRF completion guidelines. If your study decides to have an interim analysis now, which is always fun, not really, or database log, have all that communication around that in a separate folder. Any safety reports, SUSAR, SIOMs. And lastly, stuff that you really just don't know what to do with, a general folder, and put that stuff in the general folder. This is, of course, just to get like a rough idea, really. You can't overdo it with the folders. It's going to be way easier to later know. I'm looking for a newsletter. It's going to be in the newsletter folders. Question about the investigator meeting, or I need a certain set of slides from the investigator meeting weeks later. It's going to be in the investigator meeting folder. Anything around the interim analysis, when was the cutoff date again? It's going to be in the interim analysis folder, and you'll find your stuff a lot quicker. On top of that, obviously, you might be receiving any kind of weekly reports or study-specific reports or any listings, countless any other things that might warrant having their own folder in your real-life scenario then as a CRA. When you're filing away emails into these folders, you might come across a situation where you're not sure, well, this kind of applies to two folders. Just right-click your email, drag it over the first folder. It's going to ask if you want to copy it in there, and then move the email into the second folder. Rather have your email in several folders than not have it in the folder you're looking for when you're looking for that email, because when you're looking up communication and you need to locate it, that's usually not when you're going to have time. So rather have it in two folders than be looking for it then. When you send out any emails, actually a no-brainer, but still I'm going to mention here, check who's in CC. Make sure it's the right people before you click on send. And now also before you send, BCC yourself. So add yourself to the BCC line, so you will also be receiving that email in your inbox. Now, why would you do that? The reason's not that you don't receive enough emails already. It's just to make sure that you receive every email you send yourself in your inbox. And after you've received your own email, move the previous correspondence about whatever this topic is about into the corresponding folder that you've created, and do that immediately. So you only have the most current email in your inbox. And tag that email with a reminder. In Outlook and any other mail program, you can add a reminder to every email. Tag it with a reminder for when you want to follow up if you haven't heard back by then. That ensures that you don't forget to follow up on all your topics, so you don't have to worry about thinking about all this stuff. You couldn't anyway. With 1,000 emails a month, no way. What you need is a system that does all that for you automatically, and this is one part of it, is tag those emails that you sent and you receive yourself in your inbox, tag them with a reminder, move all the previous correspondence into the folder it belongs in, to get it out of the way. And if that email is then replaced with a more recent email, maybe you get a response just like 2 minutes later, again, tag that most current email with an appropriate reminder, and then move the older email into the folder it belongs into. And then wash, rinse, repeat on a consistent and ongoing basis. But make sure that you only have the most current communication in your actual inbox, and everything else in the folders. And the reminders that you tag emails with, the cool thing is they don't trigger from the folders that you moved emails into. So your actual reminders that are popping up on your screen are only really going to be for ongoing communication, where you set yourself a reminder to, hey, this is when I want to be reminded that Sally from XYZ hasn't come back to me, or my team lead still hasn't responded yet. Only those reminders are actually going to pop up on your screen. Another thing for reminders that you send out to people, when a reminder does pop up, you see that Sally has responded to your email and you want to send a reminder out, don't rephrase your previous email, hey, I still haven't heard back about patient 002 being out of window or whatnot. Just add friendly reminder / to the beginning of your subject line. In your email itself, just write, hi, Sally, just a kind of reminder, thanks, and send out that email. That's it. That's quick, it's efficient, and the entire topic that you're reminding Sally about is in the email below. So if you can be expected to remind somebody of something, then they can be expected to scroll down and see what it was about. Also, if you need an urgent response, obviously use the exclamation urgent icon, add that to the email. It does usually mean, or it does mean officially, I need a reply within the next 24 hours, the latest. And there's a little known trick for super urgent emails that are kind of like yelling at someone, drop everything, I need you to reply immediately. You're rarely going to need it, but I do want to sneak this into this presentation. And that is, when you send out an email, you can set the options for follow-up and add a reminder for the recipient to follow up on your email. And what you can do is you just set that reminder to 10 minutes have passed. And what that does is when the recipient receives that email, it automatically pops up as a pop-up on the screen as a reminder of something that is now overdue, because you set the reminder to the past. I personally only needed to use that twice. Like one instance was when I was going to a site, my cell phone died on me. There's two locked doors in between outside and the study coordinator's office. So you can knock your knuckles, buddy, but nobody's going to hear you. So I sent an email like that and popped up on her screen, and lucky enough, she came out and let me in. So obviously that is only for super, super urgent stuff, but I do want to pass that on. More general and daily use for your emails is color coding your emails. Outlook and any other email program will let you assign colors to all of your emails, and you'll only need 3 colors, and you can get to pick what colors you'd like. One color is for emails where there's no action needed by you. So this is a way you color the most recent email in a communication chain where you're waiting for someone else to take action and get back to you. And those emails, again, all need to have a reminder to yourself to get back to that person if you haven't heard back by a certain point in time. Color number 2 is you yourself need to take action on this. And those are emails where you need to take some kind of action, but you haven't yet done so. And that's because the priority of the email allows you to let that wait until you have time to get around to taking care of that. If those emails are linked to a certain deadline, they also need to have a reminder set to a time where you'll still have more than enough time to work on them and get your response out. So if you need to report something back by Friday, maybe your reminder should be set to Wednesday. Consider whether or not you'll be traveling as a CRA. That tends to happen. So take all that stuff into consideration and set the reminder accordingly. Third and last color for emails is for any important, quote unquote, important new information emails. So those are emails that you want to keep in your inbox for a few days, 2 or 3 weeks, or for however long you want to actually, because they contain information about something new on the study, something that applies to all sites, or something major that's changed, and you just want to make sure that you've stumbled over that email a couple of times, you've read it, you've reread it, and you're finally sure that that information is safely registered with you before you then move that email into a folder, because once it's in the folder, you're likely not going to read it again. So that's why those emails with the third color stay in your inbox for a little bit. There's the last category of emails, fourth one that doesn't even get a color, and the reason is those are the urgent emails that you need to process like immediately, one after the other. As soon as you have time, you process that stuff and get out of the way. Next thing, so you have all your past emails filed away in the right folders, right? And you could dig them up anytime, and all of the emails in your inbox are the most current emails, and they're all color-coded, and they all have reminders. Now everything's been prioritized, and now you can get to work on your emails. Maybe 2 to 3 times during the day, sort your emails by their assigned colors, so they're grouped by colors. So just click the top of the color column and do a check. Do all the emails you're waiting for someone to get back to you have a reminder attached? Are all the older emails of a communication that you overlooked? Stuff happens. Or they'll move them over into their folder now. And just doing that like twice a day is really quick and easy, and make sure you stay on top of a clean inbox. Next thing that's going to happen is going to be the next day, and especially if you're on international travels, you'll be getting communication overnight. So first thing in the morning when you log on, don't do anything with your emails but color code and prioritize, as we just mentioned. That makes sure that you've read all of your emails before you start responding, and you've prioritized them. You know what's coming at you today, at least status this morning, and all the stuff that you've received since yesterday, and it ensures that you're actually replying to the most current email of any communication. You don't want to be sending out responses and then you read a later email and you're like, rats, okay, doesn't really apply. So you start your day again and got a grip on your inbox. Now look at the reminders that will have popped up, previous reminders that you set for this morning. If I haven't heard back by Saturday morning, well, hopefully you're not checking your emails on Saturday. Let's say Monday morning, and work through those reminders. Since the subject lines, they all indicate the site, the topic, if applicable, the subject, you can run a search for those parts of the subject line, limit that search to your inbox, and you'll immediately see where you are with each one of those communications where your reminders are popping up. Maybe it's time to send a reminder now because you haven't heard back. If so, send that reminder, move all the previous communication into the folder again. And if not, just clean up any stuff that's left in your inbox. If you see, oh, no, that topic was completely taken care of, just grab anything that you find is still left in your inbox and move that over into the folder. Emails that come in during the day, and you will be hit by emails when you're doing other stuff as a CRA. Glance at them, just ensure that they're not super, super duper urgent, and then ignore them. Complete what you're doing first, and when you're done, then look at the communication you've received in the meantime more closely. Color code those emails, set reminders to them if it's appropriate, but resist the temptation to take care of each email immediately as it comes in. You're never going to make as good of an impression or be as productive running around putting out 10 fires at once as you will when you're constantly prioritizing your tasks in the most effective way, every day, all the time, no exceptions. And that will also, by the way, show in your long-term performance, and that is stuff that your manager will be looking at. And as a CRA, you do want to get promotions. They're fun, not just the traveling. Again, if you receive 30 emails a day, that's easily going to happen. I mean, I just checked my email yesterday. I received like 55. But with 30 a day, that's almost 1,000 a month. That's 12,000 emails a year. You need to manage that in the most efficient way, or you're eventually, again, going to run into trouble. So stick to your color coding, your reminder system, process your communications accordingly. The tasks that you're doing at any given time had the highest priority when you started, right? So complete it and then move on to the next. You have the system and you can rely on that, so you know you can free up your mind. You don't have to do some kind of weird multitasking stuff that'll only drive you crazy in this job. You can really then focus on this one thing that you're doing. Okay, so you stuck to the system as well as you could, but still you got emails somehow piling up in your inbox by the end of the week. Maybe you were traveling as a CRA and you've built up a little bit of a backlog. That can happen, but you can easily fix that. And that is by sending yourself or setting up a recurring reminder for once a week, 30 minutes on Friday, to clean out the remainder in your inbox. Take those 30 minutes a week to move everything in your inbox that is not the most current email into the folder it belongs into. Again, you can sort by colors, and that together with the subject line structure you're using will help spotting older emails immediately. So grab all those emails, file them away. Check if all the emails that should have a reminder actually have one. Check that again. And run a quick search for each one of your sites in your inbox, and you'll immediately be able to pick up all the older emails and move them out of the way too. You're going to be surprised that you're never going to need those 30 minutes. Set yourself a reminder for 30 minutes, but you're never going to need 30 minutes. You'll be done in like 5 to 10 minutes. And that's 5 to 10 minutes a week. And it's really amazing how much stress relief you're going to experience just by doing that. I mean, just looking at a cleaned out inbox after those few minutes and knowing that you're on top of every topic, all the communication that's going on, and you got a clean overview. Again, actually the most amazing thing is how little time it actually really takes if you do that. Moving on to the next topic. Again, I'm rushing through this stuff because I really want to make sure I pack as much stuff into here as I can for you, is calendar entries. And sure, you're going to have your visits at sites and regular meetings in your Outlook calendar, but also block away time in your calendar for any upcoming tasks like writing your trip reports, planning travel, writing confirmation letters and follow-up letters to your sites. It helps flip your mind to be available for the, again, task at hand and trying to keep everything you need to do on your mind. You really can use your calendar for entering all those things so you don't have to think about it, and you can really focus on what you're actually doing right now. So that is pretty much a given, actually. You can also use your Outlook calendar entries that you have for upcoming monitoring visits at sites as kind of a repository for anything you need to take care of during that visit, or anything that you want to remind yourself of or discuss with the site. And the way you do that is that, oh, somebody else wants to talk to me, not right now. What you can do is you can actually copy complete emails into those calendar placeholders for visits. So if you have some communication going on, you're like, gee golly, I'd like to remind myself of this topic when I actually go to this site next time. Just right click on the email itself, choose copy or use keyboard Control-C, go into your calendar for that upcoming visit, double click it, open up that entry, and then paste either the information or the entire email as a file in there using Control-V on your keyboard. So Control-C to copy it into the memory, Control-V to paste it in there. And yeah, it's going to look like garbage, but who cares? It's not about nice formatting in your calendar entries. It's about making sure that you can't forget about anything important for any of your site visits. So where somebody else might think, yeah, I'm going to remember all that. There's no way as a CRA. There's way too much stuff going on, way too much communication all over the place. Anything where you just have an inkling that, maybe I should think about that when I go out to the site next time. Copy that entire email, go to that visit in your calendar, open up that entry, paste your email in there, and make sure you've gathered all that communication in there. And don't worry if more up-to-date communication happens. Just copy that more recent email in your calendar placeholder. Again, it doesn't need to look nice. It just needs to have all the information in there that you need when you're actually preparing for that visit, when you're actually getting ready to go out to that site. So when you do that, you're just going to open up that calendar placeholder for the visit and look through all those emails. And then you're obviously going to immediately spot all the communication that's outdated and there's newer emails that you copied in there. But the point being is you miraculously have remembered everything that has gone on at that site since your last visit. Your site didn't appreciate it. You're going to look way more professional, and it costs you literally like 3 seconds to copy every email when it happens into the placeholder to make sure you can't forget about any topic when you do your site visits. Now, you might have a site that's only had an SIV and there's no site initiation visit, but you guys have done the training, so you know the acronyms, and there's no IMV1 scheduled yet, so there's nothing in your calendar. You can create a folder on your computer with files, and you can do the same trick. So create a site folder, under that an IMV1 folder, and with Control-C, copying, Control-V, then pasting, you can do the same thing you would have done with a calendar entry, copy entire emails into that folder on your computer, and then when they finally screen randomize a patient, it's time for you to do the first interim monitoring visit. You know all the communication, and if it's been like the last 7 months, everything's in there. You just go over that stuff before you then go out to the site, and you know you haven't forgotten anything. Cool. Okay, so your emails, your calendar are now set up perfectly. They're your best friends in managing all your different tasks and communications as a CRA. So you don't need any paper all. Yes, you do, for your to-do list. Put everything on a to-do list that's not covered either by an email reminder in Outlook or a calendar entry for like trip reports and stuff like that. And then every morning, rewrite that to-do list on a new sheet of paper. Rewriting it, for one thing, it ensures that you keep the best and cleanest overview possible on your to-do list when you start your day. And secondly, make sure that you're reminded of stuff that carries over from day to day to day, because you're rewriting those tasks. And likely things from your list from yesterday have been struck through and comments were scribbled somewhere during the day. And not only does that make it harder for you to get an overview at a glance, but it also looks like more work. And compare note from yesterday with stuff stored through and notes on it with an empty sheet of paper with only your current items on it, and you'll see what I mean. But with the reminder system that you have set up your emails and the other times in there bucked in your calendar, there's not going to be much on your written to-do list. Next topic is going to be files and documents on your computer, on your laptop. So pretty much the same guidance as in Outlook. Treat yourself to an extensive folder structure. Could look kind of like this. Corporate credit card stuff, folders for all your company's systems, templates that you repeatedly need, personal folder, all just humans. Each protocol in your protocol folders have subfolders for the protocols. Investigator brochure, all the vendors and subfolders in each one of those for the manuals for that vendor, lab manual, IWS, and so forth. Team contact lists, FAQ logs, investigator meeting slides, newsletters, your sites have subfolders for each visit in each one of those site folders, and in there store the confirmation letter for that visit, follow-up letter, visit workbook, which I'll touch on in a few minutes, and a site team training tracker, which I'll also briefly touch on in just a little bit. And also create that IMV1 subfolder that I just mentioned for the things that you want to remember, but there's no IMV calendar entry in your Outlook calendar yet. And next is a general folder and a site overview spreadsheet that I'll also touch on quickly. On your desktop, make sure that your desktop always looks 100% clean and organized. During a call, you may need to share your screen with your manager or your study team, or during an SIV presentation. Remember, you're the CRA now, presenting the study at the site during the SIV visit. Your desktop will be visible, even if just briefly. A simple trick to do that. And if you just love having 100 icons on your desktop and nobody but you can find your stuff on there, please create a folder on your desktop and call that folder desktop if you like. And now copy all of your files from your desktop into there. Your application icons will obviously remain on your desktop, but everything else, rather move that into a folder so that your desktop is nice and clean in just under 1 minute. The reason, again, is you will be sharing your screen with others. Occasionally, you might have calls with your manager, and your manager might have a question. Hey, can you show me on your computer how you do this and that? You want to make a nice first impression and have everything look organized. And you don't even have to just create a folder, copy all that stuff in there, and it can be the same kind of playground as your desktop was, but now your actual desktop looks completely organized. If you ever need to look through a bunch of documents and you need a quick overview of each document, there's also a nice trick I want to pass on. Maybe the site that you're monitoring provides you with all of their CVs, GCP certificates, and so forth on a flash drive. So you got a bunch of electronic files you need to look at. Or maybe you're reviewing them actually in the study coordinator system or whatnot. There's no need for you to double click and open each one of those files, all the PDF scans, to have a quick look at them. You can activate what's called the preview pane in File Explorer, which is a fancy word for, well, the files on the computer. And it's this icon up here in the top right. And when you click on that, it toggles between the usual view of files, as we all know them, going through the files and folder structures on a computer, to showing a preview of each highlighted files. Every file that you just click on once. You don't double click and open it, you just click on it once. The right part of this window will then be an automatic preview of that file. So that, in combination with the search function up here, search your desktop. If they have other CVs in place, you can probably just type in team members' last names. You'll immediately get the files. You just click on them once, and you immediately see the preview, and you can confirm all those documents and have a quicker preview of those. So that pretty much wraps up the introductory part of self-organization as a CRA. So moving on to other topics is tools as a CRA. And one tool I mentioned that as a CRA at a CRO, you're going to have to be entering your daily time. and tasks that you've been doing. And I highly recommend for those of you that are not Excel geeks to at least do a little bit of Excel training. Just go on YouTube and type in tutorial Excel and whatever it is that you want to learn real quick, and you'll find a 3-minute video about everything. But one functionality, for example, in Excel, most of you will know this, is you can do calculations with time. And for your time entry, I highly recommend creating a tool where you can track what you did. In this example here, trip report for IME4 at site 001, and you started at 8 and you were done at 10:25, and make this field here a field that calculates C1 over here, 10:25, minus B1 is the start time, 8 o'clock, and then it'll give you how much time you spent here. Again, it's all about wasting as little time and focus and concentration as possible. And since you'll have to track your time, that is something that I highly recommend setting up yourself to quickly calculate how much time you've spent doing what. Another tool that I'd highly recommend that you guys set up for yourselves, and that's what I was talking about when I started the meeting today, is it's really, as a CRA, going to be about how efficient can you be, and creating tools for yourself that nobody's going to create for you, that nobody's going to give you just even this calculator that just tells you, okay, those were 2.25 2 hours and 25 minutes. So really unleash your ability to create tools with anything. You're going to need those tools, and if you've been doing something 2, 3, 4 times, spend some time thinking about whether or not there is a tool that you could use, or maybe a functionality, in this example for Excel, where instead of handwriting that stuff, you can then have something automatically calculate that for you. Another tool example would be some kind of a site management tool for yourself as a CRA, and I'd recommend some kind of setup where you have an Excel spreadsheet with each site having its own tab, and maybe sort those tabs at the bottom alphabetically or with assigning site numbers. Anything that helps it make it quicker for you to then access that site, because they're in alphabetical order. You can jump right into that site when you need it. That happens so many times, it's worth that extra effort to do the alphabetical sorting once. On each one of those site tabs, what do you need as CRA? What is the stuff that you want to have access to when you're managing your sites and you're calling up a site, or a site calls you? And the reality is, every site is a moving target all the time. Plus, say you're managing 15 sites. You need something that you can jump into that's going to mentally catapult you to that site immediately when they give you a call, or you're doing your weekly calls, reaching out to each one of your sites. And what you really need is 4 different sections per site. One would be kind of like top-level site information, something out of the ordinary. The study coordinator's on vacation, there's a backup during a certain time. Or for this site in particular, there's a site manager and he or she wants to be copied in on all of the communication, or anything just top level information about that site that you want to remember. Have that on there. Then the second part that you need is all the relevant site team contacts. What's the PI's email? What's the study coordinator's phone number? Who are the backups? The pharmacy phone number and email. All the site team contacts, have them on that tab for that site, so you have a quick overview and can immediately access the phone number. Because again, it's always about those situations we don't have time, because you get a super urgent request from project management. We need this reply, and the sponsor is asking, and I have a meeting in 15 minutes, and it's that kind of scenario. You want to be able to open up your tool, jump into that site, immediately have an overview over all the site contacts, and you're going to have all the information in some kind of a CTMS system in your company, but you'll be logging onto the system, you'll be going into protocol level, the site level, drilling down to their contacts tab. then there's likely going to be like 10 duplicate entries for study coordinator because she is also the lab kit recipient, the IP responsible person, and so forth and so on. But in your overview, what you just need is every team member wants their phone number, email, and then you can give them a call. If nobody picks up, you immediately have all the backups listed on there. You call them up. So again, it's all about being quick, efficient, having all your stuff together in one place where it's most helpful to you as a CRA. Next part, third section, is all the subject visit dates, including all the min-max dates for each visit. So as a CRA, you receive these IWRS emails when a site calls in a visit. Patient just came in for their baseline visit. Bing, you get your email. Track that in your tracker. Depending on your company, you'll also have to track it elsewhere. But have that on your overview tool so that you have all patients at the site in a clean overview. You also, by the way, cache any visit window deviations immediately because you have the min-max dates in there. And lastly, have summaries of like the big topics of the most recent communication with that site. Likely you're going to have to document site communications, especially if you're working for a CRO, because it's one of the things that in their contracts with sponsors is we promise our CRAs will reach out to every site once a week, and they need to prove that somehow. And the way they do that is you tracking that communication. So you're going to have to do that anyway. So add a kind of high-level recent communication summary on that tab too. So when you do have a phone call with that site or they call you, you can immediately jump into, oh yeah, that's what we were talking about recently. And those are the things you as a CRA really need to have quick access to for each one of your sites. Top level information about the site, all the relevant team contacts, all the subjects at that site with visit windows, and what you've been communicating about recently. I then recommend, and that kind of ties into, familiarize yourself with Excel, play around with it, use the functionalities that you have, a planner for scheduling your monitoring visits. You can go into Excel and type a date, say of an SIV. You did the SIV and now you got to schedule the IMV days, and you know it's got to be in 4 weeks. You can type into an Excel field, this field equals the upper field with the date of the SIV plus 7 times 4, 4 weeks, and it will give you those dates. And you can create other dates with plus minus 7 days and whatnot to account for windows. But create yourself a tool for scheduling monitoring visits so you have a quick overview. And then another area for general site management that I highly recommend, a list of general talking points. You'll be receiving emails from project management or the team lead saying, hey, during your next call with all your sites, please remind them of whatever, or please inform them that whatever. Copy those bits of information onto a separate tab of your site management tool and add the date when that information was distributed into a second column so you could filter or sort by dates. And the reason why I recommend that is, first of all, you have a quick overview of what are the new topics since last week. You also, when you go out to a site for a monitoring visit, can quickly grab all the information since that last monitoring visit because you track the dates of when all those topics were distributed and communicated out to you to communicate onto the sites. And also, if there's a new site team member at site, new study coordinator on boards, you also have this time you can go back to basically date 1 and grab all that information, because that's always going to be information that it's not written in the protocol. That's the reason why it went into an email blast. That's the reason why the CRAs were supposed to inform all the sites. It's not written in the investigator brochure. It's not in CRF completion guidelines. So the new study coordinator is going to find that information anywhere. And that way you can quickly boost on board any new site team member, and you know that you've covered all the topics that any other site has been informed of since they started. So that's the reason why you'd add date and topic in there. again, familiarize yourself with Excel and use that. There's stuff as a CRA that you'll be doing as like compliance calculation. And I've co-monitored with so many other CRAs, and we go to a site, and then, well, the patient visit was 3 months ago, and then they start counting through the calendar. Well, how many days has this patient had study drug at home? And you should have taken 2 pills a day, so how many pills should have been taken? Use Excel, create something like that. Enter those 2 dates, and then create a third field that uh, does the math for you. That say you enter one date into field A1, the second visit into B1, and into the field C1 you just type equals B1 minus A1, and it will tell you how many days are in between those dates. And obviously you can multiply by 2 pills a day and whatnot. I mean, you all know how to do math. So I just highly recommend using Excel because, again, it automates stuff. There's going to be no miscounting in the calendar, and it just makes your work a lot easier and more error-free. Another thing about Excel that I really love, but I can only touch on here today, is called Excel macros. If you're interested, you can go on YouTube and have somebody explain to you how those work. But Excel macros are basically recordings of all your actions on a spreadsheet. And as a CRA, you'll be receiving a lot of spreadsheets with a lot of data listings. They're usually raw data listings. They look like crap, and you'll find yourself reformatting those each and every time. A good example would be you pull a listing of the site team contacts for your site management tool. That's going to look like crap, and it's going to have their zip code and an address and whatnot on it, all the stuff you don't need. You want email, phone number, first, last name, what's the role. So you rearrange all that stuff. Well, this rearranging you can record as what's called a macro. And then you download the raw data listing of your second site and you run that macro on it. And that takes like half a second, does all the reformatting for you. And you just copy paste that over. And that works for everything that's an Excel spreadsheet. So you can record any kind of manipulation on it and then rerun that. And again, as a CRA, you receive listings for study drug that's on site, lab kits on site, and all that kind of stuff. And all these things you can speed up a little bit here, a little bit there. And at the end of the day, again, it's the difference between working 10 hours and working 8 hours. Really trying to hammer this home is really create tools wherever it's possible. And you'll be bumping into data all the time. So if it makes sense to you, take the time, invest the time in creating a tool for you. It might take you half an hour, but in the long run, a good tool is always going to be worth the time that it takes you to develop it. Save time down the road, helps avoid mistakes, saves your nerves, saves your brain energy, and your brain, again, is your main tool as a CRA, and you got to use that energy wisely. It's not about how could I do, yeah, I could, yeah, sure, I can count the calendar and whatnot, and sure, I can take that times 2, but automate as much as you can. Monitors also, CRAs go out to sites and they monitor those sites. And I recommend setting up what I would call a visit workbook. And this workbook's easily going to take you a full day to complete. But it is so worth it. So I'll go into it as much as we can in the time here. Again, I'm really boiling down 2 days into like an hour, hour and a half here. So I'm going to touch on as much as I can. But you create a tool that you're actually going to print out and take to the site in paper form. And to create that visit workbook, reference the protocol, your company's visit SOPs, the clinical or site management plan, and a blank trip report. So an empty trip report, so you have all the questions that they're going to ask you or that you have to reply to when you write a trip report. Compile all that stuff and then split it into 2 different tools. One, as I mentioned, is for printing it out on paper, and one is going to be an Excel tracker for tracking site team members' training documentation. So getting into that, the paper printout needs everything on it that you need to know or do when you're on site. So in a way that makes put that in there in a way that makes everything on site as quick and easy as possible for you when you're on site. So have that tool use checkboxes or fill in the blank, underscores, whatever you can do during preparation when you have time. You can stay up an hour longer if it's late at night, but when you're on site, you have a limited amount of time. You have to get everything done then. So create your tool with that in mind, that it's as easy and quick as possible when you're on site. When you work your way through all the items during a visit, so you got your paper printout in hand with all these things you have to do during a monitoring visit. Mark the completed tasks off with something like a bracket-like line next to that part. So say on the left-hand side of your printout, just a line along that area that indicates this stuff here is all taken care of. This here is done. The reason you do that is the further that visit progresses, the easier it becomes for you to see what's actually left to do. So where others might get more and more stressed because time's running out and gosh, I hope I thought of everything. You, on the contrary, will become more and more focused on what's actually left to do, what needs to be done, and you don't have to think about what that is because you see it on your workbook. And if you don't have enough time to complete everything during that visit, you'll still be prioritizing as best as anybody could have, because you can just flip through your workbook and you see, well, okay, these are the things that would be left to do. I only have an hour left. What's the most important thing? You do that. Now I'm down to I got 35 minutes left. What's the most important thing now? You do that. So even if you weren't able to complete everything, you still prioritize in the best possible way. And on top of that, each and every task that you do, you can then fully concentrate on 100%. You're not one of the CRAs out at the site that's kind of, on one hand, doing what I'm doing right now, whatever that may be. And on the other hand, I also have to kind of keep track of what's the big picture of this entire visit. What do I have to get done? What's left before I leave the site? Nope. That's on your workbook. When you're actually on site, you focus on each individual task itself. On the printout itself, I recommend using circles kind of off to the side to indicate areas that you need to talk about with the site team member, and note that in that circle. So say there's something that you have to discuss with the PI, just a line off to the side to a circle, put PI in there. Or there's something that you have to discuss with the lab person or regulatory, just a circle off to the side and reg in there or lab in there, and a line over to the topic, so that now when you go there or when they show up, you can flip through pages and you immediately see, okay, these are the things I need to talk about with you, and you don't miss anything, you don't have to remember anything, and you have everything covered by the end of the visit. Again, you can take a lot more time creating a tool like this, but you can't extend your time on site. I mean, when you got to catch your flight, you got to catch your flight. So the stuff that should be on this tool, just to give you an idea that it's really extensive, is you want to have the site address on there. So you don't go looking for it. You can type it in for the Uber or for your GPS if you have a rental car going to the site. The study coordinator's phone number, if there's any reason you need to give them a call, you don't want to go looking for the number, you want to have it on your tool right away. The site's number, you might be filling in some documents on site. What the hell was the site number again? Have it on your tool. The date of the last monitoring visit to reference that against. When do I have to check the temperature logs again? Since when was the last visit? Since when do I have to see those logs? Or any other thing. Reminder to yourself to sign the site visit log. All the info from the emails that you collected in that calendar placeholder that I mentioned earlier, print that out as part of your tool, insert that there. Any information from all your active communication in your inbox with that site. So remember, you have these perfect subject lines, so you can just filter and search for the PI or the site number, and also all the completed stuff is moved into the folder for that site. So run a search in your inbox, pull all that stuff, and copy paste that information into this tool. A listing of all the previous protocol deviations. If you catch a deviation, you know, oh, did I already catch that at last visit maybe? A listing of any open follow-up items for this site. So you went there previously or a colleague CRA and there were items that needed to be followed up on. So there's follow-up items that are still open and outstanding. You want to have a listing of them with you, add them to the tool. A reminder to confirm that they printed and filed a follow-up letter from the last visit, that they printed and filed the confirmation letter for this visit, a listing of all the study drug expected at that site, an overview of the lab kits that you're expecting to find at the site, an overview of all the study-related equipment expiration dates of their maintenance and calibration. They have to keep records that their stuff is being calibrated on a regular basis. All protocol versions filed at this site in their binder, all the protocol signature pages filed, IRB approvals filed at the site. Same for informed consents for protocols, and on. And so literally everything that you need to do as a CRA, have that on this tool in a way that when you're actually on site, this is like a checkbox fill in the blanks tool that makes your work on site a lot quicker and lets you, again, focus on that one thing that you're actually doing right now. Except for team training, that was the Excel tool that I mentioned at the beginning. Don't write site team training that you check onto paper. Create a tracker in Excel so you can use the filter function. In that tool, you want to have columns for everything you need to confirm. So first name, last name, what is the role, start date at this site for this individual, possible end date, maybe they left the site, the 4 training relevant delegations on the delegation log. Have a column for each one of them indicating yes, no, if people have been delegated this task or not. IWRS is one of them. Data entry is the second one. Phlebotomy, blood draws, the third one. And IATA, shipping dangerous goods, frozen blood samples, is the fourth one. Why those 4? Because again, they have training documentation implications, and you as a CRA are responsible for confirming that they have all their training documentation in place. So if somebody's delegated IWRS, then they have to have reviewed the IWRS manual and documented that they did. Data entry, oftentimes there will be a training certificate that they receive once they do their training before they actually get their access to do data entry. And then there's also CRF completion guidelines that have the detailed guidelines for entering data in them. They have to have reviewed those too. Blood draws, did those people review the lab manual? Well, we want documentation of that. And IATA, dangerous goods, frozen samples, is an IATA certificate that we're looking for, that they did the training to handle those kinds of samples. And then have columns for everything else in what that's training relevant, CVs, CV, GCP certificates, everything on there. And another cool reason to create this tool, or these 2 tools, one paper, one spreadsheet, is if you've done your homework in preparation, you've really referenced the protocol, your visit SOPs for your company, the management plan for sites, and the blank trip report, so you know all those questions are integrated into your tool. What you now can do when you're actually on site and you're reviewing the binder is what I call reverse monitoring. You look at the binder, page by page by page. You start on page 1 and you work your way through the binder to the last page. And everything you're going to find in that binder is going to have a place somewhere in one of your 2 tools. It's either a CV of somebody. Awesome. Add it to the tracker. It's a GCP certificate. Awesome. Add that to the tracker for that individual. Oh, the protocol is filed. Cool. What version is it? Check that off on your paperwork book. It's filed. The protocol signature page is filed. Cool. Check that one off. IRB approvals, somewhere else in the approvals part section of the binder is filed. Great. What's the date of the approval? Track that. When you hit the last page of the binder, you now can do a reverse monitoring. Everything that's missing in your tracker or missing in your workbook is not in the binder. It's not filed on site. So I hope you see the difference between doing monitoring of the site binder and somehow trying to figure out, do we have all the protocol signature pages filed? Do we have all training documentation filed? Is every CV filed? Do we have all that stuff in place? Versus not even having to think about it while you're looking through the binder, because you're just looking at that one page that's in front of you right now. It has its place either in your workbook or in your tracking tool. And once you're done with the binder and you hit the last page, you then look at your tools and you see, hey, IRB approvals are all filed except this one. That one's missing. And this CV is filed, but it's outdated by now. Or there was a GCP certificate filed, but it already expired 3 months ago. You see all that stuff on your tools immediately. It just jumps out at you, especially the stuff that's missing. And again, makes your work a lot easier than trying to actually, let's say, think about all those things. Put that into an automated system and make your life easier. Now, on your paper printout part of this tool, there's 3 things that I recommend handwriting there. And one of them is PD for protocol deviations. So if you note anything during your monitoring visit where you're like, hey, this is a protocol deviation here, just a PD with a circle around it. And the reason to circle this stuff is so it jumps out at you on your tool. And you'll be writing a trip report using this tool. So those protocol deviations jump out at you, and you can quickly then track the deviations in your system where you write your trip reports. Another one is follow-up items for stuff that you notice during the visit. Hey, this GCP certificate was outdated, or this protocol is not filed, or something else. This informed consent form, there's no blank version filed in your binder. Write FUI, follow-up item, circle it, and leave that next to that area so that, again, when you're writing your trip report, all your follow-up items that you saw during that visit jump out at you right away. And a last one is either on that handwritten tool, or if you prefer handwritten notes just on blank paper when you do source data verification. Obviously, I can't touch on source data verification today. You've done training on that. But queries that are not closed by the end of the visit have a queue in a circle, and those are your open queries that you discover. Queries you want to go over with the study coordinator. So not only are they in the EDC system, but take time with the study coordinator to sit down and discuss those open queries and see if you can get them resolved during that visit. When you're writing the trip report back at home, again, document those protocol deviations. Part of your tool was the open follow items. So you'll have handwritten notes from your visit next to each item about the current status or if they were closed out during your visit. So update those follow-up items in your company's system and add the new follow-up items into the system. And then pull a listing of open follow-up items. There will be a way in your company's system where you can pull that listing and export them into a spreadsheet. And now when you're writing your trip report, you're going to be required to reference all the follow-up items that are currently open at your site in the different questions of your trip report. So reference them from that spreadsheet, say follow-up item number whatever, and then the next one and the next one and the next one. And in your spreadsheet, have a column where you just mark those ones that you already referenced and filter them to not longer show on your spreadsheet. So as you work your way through writing your trip report, fewer and fewer follow-up items are left on that tracker. And when you're done, you know that you've referenced each and every follow-up item and your trip report is ready to go. Now, if you're starting to think this sounds like an awful lot of amount of prep work for a visit, trust me, it's the quickest and easiest and, by the way, most professional way to do that. It's the fastest way to prepare for monitoring visits, even if it costs you a full day for the first one, but then you have your template and it's easy to adapt to other sites and other visits. On site, it is a world of difference to have a tool like that you're working off. So it's fast, it's easy, and on top of that, on site, it's 100% accurate. Okay, I want to just briefly go over other stuff and just bring up, that this is really the most compact version that I could pack this into, and I actually had the goal of doing it in an hour, but that didn't work. Obviously, there's a bunch of other stuff that is part of the coaching program that I do. So if anybody's interested, from just general boosting your career as a CRA, I started with a salary of 55,000-ish, and as a senior, you're in the range of 110, 120. So there's ways to get there quicker. Took me about 5 years. General tips about just overcoming procrastination as a CRA. There's always stuff you're going to hate, I promise. And reducing stress techniques, increasing your mental focus. There's some tricks how you can actually even put your subconscious to work, how to interact with your manager, and also do that in a way that will put you on the list of the higher salary increases. And general, obviously, just building site rapport and communication, how to use investigator meetings, and so forth and so on to your greatest benefit. So that is pretty much the end. I did promise Dan that I'd make you guys a special offer for the coaching program that is only valid for today. If somebody's interested, I have 2 upcoming courses on June 2nd and 3rd, and the 23rd and 24th, and that is only for the course members of the CRA Academy, $500 off for the next 24 hours. The course is usually $19.98, so it's going to be $14.98 for anybody who's interested. If you are interested, just go on the cracoach.com, and there is a hidden page only for CRA Academy members. So it's cracoach.com/the CRA Academy, and you can log on. Well, don't have to log on. You can just shoot me an email there if you're interested. That coaching program is against a 2-day live coaching. You get all the tools, more than just the ones that I've touched on today as kind of ideas and concept. You get complete functional versions of all of those templates, instructions, 60-page manual. So everything really that you need to do from a practical perspective as a CRA, how to manage this job in a stress-free way. It's all in there. And as a special bonus for the first 3 that sign up, I'll throw in a one-on-one coaching of 1 hour where I'll be happy to address anything that you're interested in. So again, that's the cracoach.com at the CRA Academy if anybody's interested. Let's see now. I'll close this window here and stop sharing and go back to the attendees. And I'll just, let's see, I'm new to this platform here. Let's see if I can unmute everybody. No, do not mute everyone. Nope. Let's see. No, I have no idea, honestly, guys, how I can unmute you. But we can still use the chat function. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to address those. And obviously, you can also just reach out to me through my website if you want to have a quick chat about something. But if you have any questions today or anything that went over way too quickly, it was just completely confusing, no help at all, I have no idea what the hell you were talking about, feel free to send a message through the chat function. And if there's anything you want me to go over again, we do have couple more minutes left that we could add to the call. I'll be happy to address any questions you have. And if not, I'll give it another minute for those slow typers. And if nothing comes in through the chat function, again, feel free to reach out to me on my website. And otherwise, I'll wrap it up. So let's give it another few seconds. Maybe one last question from me to you guys. Did you still hear me? Was the audio okay? Just a yes would be cool. Okay, thank you. Wonderful. Thank you, Femi. Thank you, Prakruti. I really appreciate that.
Hi, this is Femi.
Yes, hi, Femi. How are you?
You mentioned the folder, ways to make it easier on the CRAs to get to their files or documents.
Yes.
What would you recommend would be a good way to find a folder? Because with what you're saying and with what I've read, there's going to be a lot of information that we're going to be processing daily.
Yes.
What would you recommend as a starter for starting off?
Yes. What I recommend is really any form of document that you receive. You know what? I'm actually on my work computer here, and I'm not sharing my screen anymore. So I can give you, I can share my screen. Obviously, it's confidential stuff, but I can look into here just to give you like a full scope idea. Really, again, any kind of document you receive. So say you're on trial and there's some kind, it's a pulmonary trial, and they're doing some kind of weird pulmonary tests, and there's a vendor that centrally analyzes that data. You might get a guidance document about how their online platform works. Create a folder, and even if it's just that one document, put it in there. Just make sure that you steer as clear as you can away from having any part of your computer where there's a bunch of documents just in there and you hope you'll find it. Rather create a folder for each document, so that you're going to be receiving lab manuals, for example. There's always going to be blood draws, and you'll receive a manual for the central lab platform and how you can log on there and whatnot, the functionalities. That's going to be a manual you'll be provided. Save that on your computer under that protocol folder, and then say Covance is a huge lab vendor, Covance Lab. And then in that folder, copy that lab manual. If you get an updated version 3 months from now, 6 months from now, maybe create a folder, superseded versions, copy the old lab manual in there, and leave the most current one on the top level of your lab folder. The same thing, informed consents. If there's like countrywide informed consents, create a folder for informed consents and have them in there. Investigator brochures. A lot of these documents, you might not even be sent in an email, but you might be required to do a training. So you're new as a CRA. Now they hired you, and lucky you, you get this trial here, and you're assigned to this trial. Now you have to do all the trainings. So you do those trainings, and say one of the trainings is the investigator brochure. You have to review it as a CRA. But nobody really emailed it to you. It's part of the training. Well, most likely than not, you can copy or save that investigator brochure from the training straight onto your computer. It's usually going to be like a PDF that opens, and you can save that PDF. So any document that you might just be required to review during a training, save them into separate folders. You can't have too many folders. If you have 100 folders, your computer is going to sort them alphabetically anyway. You're the person who gave that folder the name. So the likelihood is much, much higher that you're going to find that stuff really quick if you do ever need it. Same, you go to an investigator meeting. And then after the meeting, they send out all the slides from this 3-day investigator meeting, and they've been having presentations about everything on trial. And then afterwards, you as a CRA receive all those slides as PowerPoint presentations. Awesome. Create a folder, call it IM Investigator Meeting, drop all those presentations in there. If you ever need those presentations, that's where they're going to be. You're probably going to recall from the presentations themselves, hey, they had this information was in one of those presentations. I know it. You go into the investigator meeting folder, you look up those presentations, and you find that information way quicker than you would otherwise. Examples for emails that you're likely going to receive is newsletters. There might be monthly or bi-monthly newsletters that are sent out by project management to all the sites. Save them in a folder on your computer. There's going to be all kinds of plans, like a project management plan, and you're going to have to review it in your training. Save it to your computer. There's going to be time entry guidelines that tell you exactly, hey, there are 10 different codes for 10 different activities that you do as a CRA, and you have to enter your time that you spend according to these codes into our system. There's a time code for preparing for an interim monitoring visit. There's a time code for time spent during travel to the site. There's a third code for data, for source data verification on site. There's a fourth code for reviewing the binder on site. There's another code for time spent writing the follow-up letter and stuff like that. So those are the so-called time entry guidelines. You'll be receiving those and updates of those during the study, because they're always like, oh gosh, yeah, we don't have a code for that. Shoot. And there you go. Here comes the updated time entry guidelines version 15. Have a folder for that. So I hope this kind of paints a picture. I hope it's helpful. Really, if it's a document that you think you could possibly have to look at once again within the next 2 years, save it into a folder.
Thank you very much. One question, I know you mentioned about co-monitoring, and it does brought me to the conversation I had with my friend. He said you most likely will be doing co-monitoring when you start with a company just because they want to see you at work. And what would be your recommendation as to how to prepare for that? Because a lot of the time would be probably nervous to the industry. What would be your recommendation as to be prepared? Because the person we might be co-monitoring with might not be as nice, so to say. And the person is expecting you to know a lot, or be able to do a particular thing, or do source data verification in a particular way, or use the document you just mentioned, like use your folder. How did you go back and forth? All that put together. So what would be the recommendation as to when we're going into this, what should we do? Be our plan, or should be a plan?
Yeah. No, great question. Great question. First of all, let me preface that with, you're going to be surprised, at least I was. I had a little bit of discussion with Dan Sfera about that, but my experience has been I bumped into tons of great people in this industry, especially at CROs, if you're working there. So I wouldn't be, just to give you that, a better feeling going into that, I wouldn't be too worried about bumping into jerks. Okay, it's not very likely to happen. Social skills, especially in those corporations, are really important to be able to be a good CRA. You got to be able to talk to the PI and turn around and talk to the lab tech, and then back to somebody else, and then project management. And you've got to be really competent in communicating in all those directions at different levels. So people that have been in the game for a while are usually good communicators and very rarely idiots and just jerks. But Dan told me he ran into some people that were not that pleasant, but my experience over the last really 10 years has been I bumped into one person that is in the asshole category. Okay, but everybody else has been either neutral or really helpful and nice people. So that being said, it really ties into this kind of a workbook setup. So if you're really new, it's going to take you longer, obviously, than an experienced CRA to set up a tool like that where you know, okay, I've read the entire protocol and everything that it says we have to check that has to be done at visits and so forth is kind of accounted for in my tool. I also looked at a empty trip report. So all the questions they have in there: have new patients been screened? What are the informed consent versions that were signed? Are there sufficient lab kits at site? There's the company I work for, there's literally 80 plus questions in a trip report that I have to answer when I write a trip report. So obviously I pull a blank version of that and make sure that every question in the trip report is part of this tool, so that on my printout, those questions are all on there. And the same with the company's SOPs. There's going to be SOP training that you have to do where you are trained on, let's say, an interim monitoring visit per this company's SOP. Everything they require you to do as a CRA, have that in your tool as checkboxes. Yep, did that. Oh, have to check a certain date. Have a enter the blank field in there. And if you have all that prepared, and to be honest, if you're completely new as a CRA, that might cost you a weekend where you're sitting there Saturday, Sunday preparing that. Then when you go out to the site, you really have the peace of mind to know everything that I have to do is on this workbook. I can't forget anything. I might overread it and then catch it when I read this page the second time, but it's in here. And that gives you a tremendous amount of peace of mind when you go out to the site. And seriously, these workbooks that I work with, I mean, I'm an active CRA. They can easily be 15 to 20, 25 pages. So really, we're not talking about a 2-page checklist here. We're talking about all of your tasks as a CRA during a monitoring visit. And then the other tool that I touched on, this spreadsheet, where you'll track all the site team trainings in there. So you'll have a column for CVs, a column for GSP certificates and whatnot. And the first column to the left will be last name, first name, and role. If you track all that in an Excel spreadsheet, that's going to cover all of that other review. The thing is really, and I remember that when I started out as a CRA, I and most colleagues I meet are rather hesitant to have these kind of like, quote unquote, overboarding tools. To be honest with you, I've been honest with the entire call. There's no way in hell, to put it that way, that anybody on the planet can, out of memory, remember all the things you need to do during monitoring visits. There's no way in hell. There's way too much stuff. It ties into open follow-up items, what lab kits are expected at the site, what's a listing of all the study drug that they're supposed to have in the pharmacy. All those things, have them together in one tool. And if it's a 20-page tool, who cares? Much more important to you on site is you can flip through 20 pages like nothing. I mean, once you're like halfway through the visit and a bunch of stuff is checked off and you want to see, okay, I got 4 hours left, what's left to do? You can flip through those 20 pages in under a minute and you have a 100% overview over what's left to do. And then you do the next important thing. And if you're really new as a CRA, you're not going to make the impression of, hey, here comes this new guy and he's completely lost. He has no idea of what needs to be done and so forth. Look at this huge workbook he's got with him, so forth and so on. That's not the impression you're going to make. You're going to make the impression of, this man has put a lot of thought and work into how he's organizing his work. And especially, it's going to show at the end of a visit. You know, even if you have this kind of worry, I'm showing up here with blankie in hand and my huge visit workbook, you know, looking like a doofus. By the end of the visit, once you've really covered all that stuff and really prioritized according to your workbook, and you've been fast, you've been accurate, and you've been prioritizing as best as anybody could have, and you can't forget anything, don't worry about you looking unprofessional. It's going to be exactly the opposite. I've worked with these workbooks. I've been doing it for years. I only had awesome feedback from, just had visits from where 3 team members from a big pharma sponsor came along. And they're actually interested in my coaching program and how I organize this stuff. And a big part on site that they actually saw live is this workbook in combination with a spreadsheet. And they were like, shit, we're going to pass this on to our training department and see if they don't want to reach out to you, because this is how it should be done. So don't worry about it. The results will show that the way you've organized it is the way you should. Okay, that was a long answer. And I see in the chat somebody else I think, have another question.
Yeah, sorry.
Sure.
I was just asking the other guys if they have a question before I ask the last question.
Yeah. Anybody else speak up?
Hi, good afternoon. Sure. Thank you for such a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Yes, just a practical question. Do you think at this level where we are, it would be important for us to do the training with you, like before we have any type of work or experience? You think
I would highly recommend it, for the simple reason is if you kind of got like a real life feeling from this quick presentation.
Yes.
And like a broadened perspective of, okay, this is kind of like the direction how a CRA should be organized in the real world. If you've done the 2-day course, and I go through each of these things that I touched on, I go through the actual real tools and the actual templates, and really step by step each and every one of them, so that at the end of day 2, and I don't just cover tools, I also go over a bunch of these other soft skill stuff, is other kind of tricks that get you from 60, 70K to 110, 120 a bit quicker. Mm-hmm. And how do you stand out in your company, and all those other things tie in there too. How do you really physically and mentally reduce stress, which is really important as a CRA.
Yeah, and that's so can help with the interview, because we'll be more focused.
Focused too, and most of all, you will have a real life understanding of the 2 most important things that your interviewer is looking for. And your interviewer, I promise you, at any big company that you're trying to get hired by, is somebody who's been a CRA for years in their career. They know what they're looking for. And if you show up and from their questions and your responses, they just see you understand, first of all, what is the real life scenario of the CRA? What is this job really like in real life? And on top of that, you know the solutions to all the problems the CRA has from a self-management perspective, staying on top of all those things. How do you manage 15 sites? How do you make sure you don't forget stuff? How do you organize this and that? And all those tools, you are aware of a complete system. And that is really what my coaching program wraps up to in the end, is a complete system of this is how to manage everything that you do as a CRA. And I've been refining it. Again, I just got back from a monitoring visit yesterday in San Diego. And I was thinking about the call today, because it was such a that's the way I am. I'm a bit outspoken. It was such a clusterfuck when I showed up there. I show up for a closeout visit, and the pharmacy tells me they're not going to let me see the study drug. I have data stuff that the site needs to correct, and nobody at the site has access to the EDC system. I'm like, oh my God. and those are real life scenarios that happen to you. You don't show up at a site and they've got everything in place and everything's perfect. It's really about, how do you manage this kind of scenario? I mean, I fly out to San Diego, and one of the main things is we got to return study drug today. We're closing out. This is why I show up here in person. Yeah, no, we can't let you into the pharmacy because the study coordinator forgot to schedule with them, and they're a separate unit, and they're booked out and they have no time and whatnot, and so forth and so on. So if I wouldn't be working with my tools, where I just know, okay, I don't care. Now it's going to take like an hour and a half to deal with pharmacy with this funk situation here because I have to call up project manager and see what we can do. And then I need to escalate something else to make sure with Crowbar we get somebody who has access to EDC like now. And that took like 2 hours. And 2 hours of this closeout visit had passed. Again, my return flight at the airport that I have to get to is approaching closer and closer and closer. And I've literally done nothing of the things I wanted to do. But if you work with these tools, bam, you're organized, you prioritize, and at the end of the day, surprisingly, we had everything covered. Everything was done. And yeah, and that's really also because you don't waste time on going all crazy about, am I thinking about everything? Oh my shit, I hope I don't forget something. No, it's on your tools. And that plus all the other things, you just have a complete understanding of how you're going to manage all kinds of situations as a CRA, what tools you will have, and what tools you will create, and exactly what they're going to be for, how they're going to tie into each other to create this complete system that interlocks on different levels and covers everything. And an interviewer, I can tell you, I worked in Germany for a while as a contract CRA too. So I did several interviews as a contract CRA where you need projects a lot more frequently than a regular job where you get hired by the company and you stay there for a while. And I can tell you what got me 100% of all the projects was always questions related to something that is part of my course. It's really the hands-on stuff that really separates you from everybody else. I mean, you probably get a little bit of a feel of the difference in your view on the hands-on aspect of this job. And yeah, and that's what those interviewers, they can sniff that out real quick, I promise.
Of course, if you have certain experience, you should have experience solving situations.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for your the answer to that. It's really enlightening. What I wanted to ask was, a lot of us, for me, I won't be coming to Auburn County to do the internship. I will be doing it here in Georgia, in Atlanta. Now, Mike, what would you like us to look out for when we're going through those internships? Because this is new. These are applications or systems or things that we'll be getting familiar with. Yes, we've read the theory here. We've seen it. We've talked about it and read about it. But now going on this particular program, once a week, what would you like us to look at? We're trying to paint a picture of what you'll be saying and what you'll be putting in your to really be in sync with what you're saying now and actually seeing those things.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm the right person to answer that because, again, I'm not really part of Dan Sferra's CRA Academy. It's really just a guest lecture by me.
Okay.
So what I do is I talk CRAs off the ledge that are completely burned out and frustrated, and I show them a way how to manage all this stuff in a stress-free way. And on the other hand, I give study coordinators or other aspiring CRAs this edge through this understanding to, first of all, be ahead of the curve in job interviews, because if you're applying for a job interview as a junior CRA, people that don't have monitoring experience, all your competition doesn't know what you're going to know after the coaching program. So you're going to outshine everybody there. And on top of that, when you get the job, you hit the ground running, because you know where to plug in all this stuff, kind of like we discussed earlier with documents. Where would I save them? What should I save? And so forth, plus all the other tools and structures and systems and whatnot. So you actually hit the ground running without running straight into burnout within the first year. Because, again, that's where I come from with my coaching program, is really boiling down my 10 years of experience in working with major CROs. into a program that really condenses, okay, this is how you set yourself up. And there's no need. The funny thing is that nobody teaches this. Nobody teaches you these practical aspects, even at companies. And to me, that actually is one of the most important things, is really to kind of explain the tools. Is compare it to if you were a carpenter and said, okay, here's a table and here's all the tools, so now you know how to build a table. Yeah, not really. Mind explaining all the tools to me? And that really focusing in on what does the CRA need, and only that stuff. Yeah, nobody's gonna teach you that, unfortunately. So, but getting back to your question about the internship, I defer that back to Dan Sfera and his team for them to maybe give you some kind of idea, because I honestly, I really don't even know what that looks like. I'm not going to pretend I do. Okay, are there any other questions
Thank you.
before we wrap it up? Okay, then I'll stop recording. And thank you guys. Thanks for your feedback. Thanks for listening in. And again, if you feel that it'd be beneficial to you for the next 24 hours, feel free to log in or go on to my website, again, cracoach.com/the Academy, and sign up. And I'll be happy to give you $500 off on one of the next 2 courses. Okay, guys. So everybody else, have a wonderful extended weekend, and all the best to all of you. I hope to hear you soon on my coaching program. Take care.